okay? So the alphabetic is what gets you to the right code in the tabular. If you code only from the alphabetic, I will guarantee and I will bet you my entire life savings that you'll code wrong. And I will not lose that kind of money, but I can promise you, you will code wrong if you code only from the alphabetic. If for no other reason than as instructors, we know that, and we're going to give you codes that you're not going to get right until you turn to the alphabetic, until you turn to the tabular, because we're going to trick you up, because we know you're going to shortcut it. We know it like we know the back of our hand. We know that's what they're going to do to you on the certification exam. So, that's how we're going to trick you up, and it's going to be intentional. It's not mean, it's just to make you learn the importance of it. When you start coding, the first thing I want you to remember is that the codes are divided according to what you see on page 5. Take a look at the table of contents. Now, right now, I'm not really interested in the preface and the acknowledgments and the introduction and the conventions, although I probably should. Let's stop and look at it. Yeah, let's look. Look in the front of your code book. Now, the code book versus the textbook. And we're going to see what is in the front of your book. Well, as you start the pages, yeah, there's a lot of advertising, okay? They like to advertise their own publications. That only makes sense. But I want you to keep turning until you get to something that looks official, like the preface. And your book may or may not have a preface.
I think ours goes to introduction.
All right. Look through those pages, every single page, because there's important information there that you need to read and understand. All right, do you have a section called Introduction? All right, does it start out with like background and maintenance?
It does say that. It's on,
Oh,
it's
I see
on
introduction,
Roman,
yes.
yes, Roman 2,
Yeah.
Roman number 2,
Okay.
2 and 3.
All right, that's going to help you understand more about how the codes are broken down. Read it. They didn't put it in here just to fill up an empty page, okay?
Corrections, see if they did have corrections in this.
Okay, good enough. Then turn over and do you find conventions? And we're not talking about a meeting, we're talking about rules.
Yeah.
All right, conventions. Those are all the rules and things that you're going to need to know in this book. Now turn, do you find a place that says code changes?
Yes, and
That tells you what got changed in your book versus the previous edition of the book. So were there a lot of changes?
Yes.
Yeah, there really were. Every year there can be a lot of changes. How many pages of changes did you have? So between 2009 and the 2008 edition, there were 10 pages of changes. Between the 2008 book and the 2007 book, there were only 2.5. So a fairly light year versus a heavy year. All right, now turn and do you find the ICD 9CM official guidelines for coding and reporting? Should be just about the next thing.
coding guidelines.
Yeah, coding guidelines.
Oh, okay. We got it.
How many pages are there? 28 pages. You know what? Those are the rules for coding. Every rule in there is something that's going to be explained to you in your textbook, and you're going to have practice with it. Ideally, if you sat here and learned all of these coding guidelines, would you be fine? Yeah. Yeah, you would be.
For just the year until they change it?
Well, the coding guidelines are pretty stationary.
Okay.
They're stable. The problem is, read over them. Do they make any sense to you? No, not yet. They will once we go in depth about each one of them. But this is the part of the book that you need to know up one side and down the other by the time you get through with this course. This is what you need to be able to review and understand and use as a mechanism to see how well you think you can code. All right, now, I'd like for you to turn to the section entitled it's the beginning of the alphabetic index. Turn till you see an A and listings listed alphabetically. An A. We've been there before, but that is the beginning of the alphabetic for diseases. Now, notice in the upper corner it says for diseases and injuries. In actuality, it's not just diseases and injuries that are included here. It is every reason anybody could encounter health care, whatever it could be. It could be that they're fainting. It could be that they're faking an illness. It could be that they left a baby on the doorstep of the hospital. All those things have to be able to be coded, and this is what allows us to do so. All right, so we're getting a little bit repetitive now, but you've seen the beginning of the book. Now go back to page 5 in your textbook. I want you to also turn to the beginning of the tabular. Go through the alphabetic. Look at your colors on your outside of your book, on the outside edge. That should help you. I hope yours is color tabbed in some way. But what I'd like for you to find is code 001. Go all the way through the alphabetic. It's about an inch worth of alphabetic. For the tabular, code 001. I suggest to you that you put some tabs on this book. Go get you a set of dividers and mark where the two alphabetic indexes begin, and mark where the two tabulars begin, and mark where the V codes begin and the E codes. If you didn't write that down, hopefully you're going to see this again on video. You need to put tabs where the alphabetics begin, and there are 2 of them. Where the procedure indexes begin, and there are 2 of them. Where the V codes are and where the E codes are. That's at a minimum. I'd also put one where those guidelines were that we just saw. So you need about 6, 7, 8 tabs. Get the kind that you just stick on the edge of the page, and it will be a lifesaver to you. All right, so at this point, I hope you're in 001, or you have that up so you can get to it. All right, if you take a look at your textbook and you take a look at your workbook, you're going to find that Chapter 1 is infectious and parasitic diseases. Well, isn't that what you also see in your textbook? Yeah. All right, so that is what we know as a chapter. And this particular chapter, look to the right of the words infectious and parasitic diseases, and do you see where it says 001 to 139? Write that in your workbook, right there beside infectious and parasitic diseases. Right there beside it. And that's going to tell you that anything that falls between a 001 and a 139 is going to be an infectious and or parasitic disease. All right, so if it's cancer, is it going to fall between 001 and 139? No. If it's a fractured leg, is it going to fall there? No. If it is a parasitic disease, is it going to fall there? Yes, it will. All right, now knowing that that's how the book works, can I now flip over to code, or what would be the next code I'd look at? If 001 to 139 is infectious and parasitic, what would the very next section be, or next chapter? 140, right? All right, so let's see what 140 tells us.